giving thanks, celebrating the goodness of each other, the goodness of God, and the goodness of God's grace. On October the 16th, 1995, a woman named Jean Calment of Paris was inducted into the Guinness Book of Records by becoming the oldest human being at that time, living over 120 years. She was born on February the 21st of 1875. One year before the invention of the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell. Jean remembered the very construction of how the Eiffel Tower had gone up. She had remembered standing on a corner selling colored pencils to a famous painter named Vincent van Gogh. She had survived 27 presidents in France. And the interviewer asked her this question: what's the secret of your long life? And she responded, my secret is joy and laughter. The Bible tells us a cheerful heart is good medicine. And so every year we come to this day of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving being reminded to be cheerful, to celebrate the goodness and the grace of God. I remember this day as I reflect back on the years we spent with my grandmother, the times when we would go to her house for Thanksgiving. You would walk in the house, and there would be these aromas, the aromas of roast turkey, all ready for you to consume. There was that smell rising from the oven of fresh baked bread, and pecan pies and apple pies, and a whole host of other things. And we would gather around the table, and we would stop for a moment to give our thanks. Thanks for a good family. Thanks for a reasonably healthy life. Thanks for good friends that would support and encourage us in the things that we would do. Thanks for church and church family and how they would surround us and embrace all of us. We would pray our prayers of thanksgiving. But is one day in the year enough? Enough for us to give our thanks to God for the blessings, for the hope, for the mercy, and for the kindness. Paul tells us in our scripture lesson today, one day out of the year is not enough. We should be thankful 365 days in the year. But usually we encounter those bumps in the road in our lives that make it a little difficult for us to celebrate, for us to be thankful, for us to give praise back to God. And it's those bumps in the road that Paul is talking about in this passage. It is those bumps that cause us to take our eyes, our mind, our gratitude off of God and fix them on the situations of our lives. And when we fix ourselves on the bumps of the road, we find ourselves sometimes not being grateful for all that God has given us. For example, there was a young man, and the young man's name was Paul Pigman. He had spent hours in his kitchen, cleaning the kitchen and getting it all straightened up and organized and getting everything put back into order. He left the house for a little while. When he returned home, the kitchen was in a terrible wreck. His young daughter, who had obviously been busy cooking, had ingredients all over the floor, flour on the floor, sugar on the floor, messy bowls on the counter, all kinds of chocolate everywhere. And you can imagine, after spending that amount of time cleaning a kitchen, what was going through his mind as he entered that kitchen and saw it as a wreck. But then he spotted a little small note on the table. You could barely read the note because of all the chocolatey fingerprints that was on the note. But the note read this: Daddy, I've been making something wonderful for you. Signed, your angel. Who could be mad at that point? Who could look at the kitchen and really continue to be upset with the daughter who was trying to make something for her dad? And you know, our lives are something like that little girl. Life gets all messed up. The flour's all over the floor. The sugar's all everywhere. The bowls, messy bowls, are everywhere. And we look and we wonder, can we continue to celebrate, to give thanks, to appreciate the goodness of God in the midst of the mess? But Paul is calling the church of Philippians and calling the church of today to remember that in the midst of the disarray, in the midst of the mess, in the midst of whatever is going wrong in our lives, on our jobs, in our homes, and sometimes in our church, can we stop and pause and give thanks anyway? Can we give thanks to God anyway?